just looking through the pages. This book is gratefully dedicated to those who have been so supportive of me during a very difficult time. You are all my readers. This is a personal note from Christy Golden. So yeah, this book looks really good. It's a total of 300 and actually, you know what? This looks like timeline. Oh, this is how you like to read the books, and this is a timeline of the whole entire Starcraft lore. So, in total, this book is about 295 pages long. So we'll just read the first two chapters until people come in here, and we're just gonna wait for more people to come in, and we are gonna read a good story. So, I was just posted on Reddit and such. Hopefully, we'll get some people come in here. So, all right. So, I guess we could try to read it now, guys. So, of course, this will be on YouTube in case people forgot to come here and see this. And I'm gonna put my Skype on Do Not Disturb, so we don't get those beeps during the reading. All right, guys. Get your snacks, your water, your popcorn, and we'll be ready to read Flashpoint. This is the story between Wings of Liberty and Heart of the Swarm. So, we're gonna read right now. All right. So, kids, get all nice and cozy. I got my EG up there. Alright, here we go, guys. Page 1. And this is taking place in 2504 apparently. Chapter 1. We all got our choices to make. Those were the last words Tychus Finley, criminal, former Marine, and traitor, would ever hear from his old friend James Rayner. Tychus had made his choice first, to betray Jim's trust and friendship by attempting to murder Sarah Kerrigan, the former Queen of Blades, who now sprawled shivering and vulnerable in a red-black cavern inside the planet Char. Jim had chosen not to let him. I made a deal with the devil, Jimmy. And for that deal, Sarah lay limp and trembling alive, and Tychus Finley lay stiffening in the armor that had turned out to be first a prison and then a metal coffin. Jim lowered his pistol. Smoke still drifted upward from its muzzle, mingling with the steam that curled and coiled at his feet. The bullet meant for Arcturus Manx, the man he hated above all others, had instead ended the life of the man Jim had once called his best friend. What have I just done? Jim fought back the tidal wave of emotions that threatened to overwhelm him. This was no time for rejoicing that the artifact to restore Kerrigan had worked, for berating his own lack of judgment regarding Tychus, for mourning the giant of a man whose rumbling voice would never again utter either jokes or threats. They needed to get out of this murky, hellish cavern off this world, and fast. With Sarah Kerrigan, his men moved forward as their commander hoisted his weapon, clearly intending to bring Tychus' body with them. Jim barked sharply, "Leave him." "Sir?" Cam Fraser asked, confused. "We don't leave no one behind." "We're leaving him." I ain't gonna risk any of your lives for the sake of carrying the corpse of a traitor, Jim snarled. It was a valid argument. But even as he spoke the words, Jim knew it wasn't the only reason for his decision. He wanted to leave Tychus behind. Finley had cut a deal with Arcturus Manx. He would have traded Kerrigan's life for his freedom. Now Sarah Kerrigan lived, and Tychus would rot inside his suit. There was a brutal justice about it that Jim suspected would rack his soul if he thought about it too much. But, perhaps mercifully, there was no time for thinking. They had come here to the Zerg base world of Char, to do what no doubt seemed like madness, to make the Queen of Blades human again. They had found her deep inside the volcanic ashy planet. She seemed completely stripped off her Zerg-given abilities and appearance. Gone were the bony wings, the scaly skin that had once covered her toned body, but her hair was still. It looked like it had worked, and looked like was close enough for Raynor for now. We need a dropship, Matt, Raynor said into his comm. Matt Horner, captain of the battlecruiser Hyperion, sounded stunned. It worked? The alien thing Valerian had us go find for him? It really worked? Raynor knelt, and, as gently as possible in the giant metal suit, slid his arms beneath Sarah and lifted her. She whimpered once, and his heart broke. Looks like, he said. He didn't voice his concern about her to Matt as his gaze was drawn again to what crowned her head. The long, red, silky tresses Raynor had once run his hands through were still only things of memory. This part of the Queen of Blades had not changed. Instead of soft tendrils, what looked like a hideous cross between tentacles, sectioned insect legs, and quills adorned her skull. Maybe, like a tail that wasn't needed anymore, it was just a vestigial relic left behind after the artifact worked its voodoo. Maybe it wasn't. I really can't believe it, sir. Matt was still stuck in astonishment. I said we need a dropship. Unless we go into all this trouble to free Sarah, only have her die along with the rest of us, Matt, Raynor said. He rose. Sarah's form, naked as any newborn's, shifted with the gesture, rolling closer to him. If only he were really holding her in his arms, not just carrying her in his armor, he thought fleetingly. If only he could feel her against him, as he had once, a few years ago, a lifetime ago. Sarah, I'm going to keep you safe. Of course, sir, said Matt, snapping to attention again. The Zerg are going crazy without the Queen of Blades to direct them. Some of them were fleeing, but a whole mess of them are apparently just interested in suicide runs. It's going to be tough getting something down there to you, but we'll do it. Attaboy, Raynor said. He headed back toward the entrance, carrying Sarah carefully. Now listen up. We've got a little complication. Your dropship needs to wait for 2 groups, not just one. I had to split up my team. My group went to find out what the Xel'Naga artifact did to Kerrigan, and Lizlea and Haynes stayed behind to protect it. Once you figured out where you're going to land that dropship, they'll bring it with them and meet us there. There was no way they were leaving the artifact behind. Jim could see it in his mind's eye, sleek and black, slightly longer than a man was tall, with blue luminescent lines that revealed where 5 separate pieces had come together to create a single assuaging device. Raynor knew that although they had only begun to understand what it was capable of, he would always remember it and be grateful for what it had done for Sarah. I'll start analyzing the terrain for the safest place to park one, sir, Matt said. You do that. Jim ended the conversation and switching to another channel. They stepped out of the cavern. I killed my best friend and left him to rot in there. Into the red glow of what passed for sunlight on Char, it was an ugly and unpredictable world. The surface was rocky and black, or gray with ash, or simply just liquid fire. The atmosphere was survivable without hardskins. Barely. It was hell. Pure and simple, and a fitting place for the Zerg to call their home. Jim? The voice was weak, but it was hers. Human. And she knew who he was. It's okay. I got you. And that was all he needed to say. He walked slowly, carefully. Then, feeling her gaze, met her eyes. He did not give her a reassuring smile. His feelings ran too deep for that. He looked at her for a moment, then returned his attention to the ugly world around him. Words could come later. Right now, he needed to get her to safety. "Hey boys," he said into his comm. "It worked. You kept that Zelnaga thing safe from me like I asked?" "Yes, sir," came Leslie's voice. Had to fight back a bunch of them when it first started, but they've steered clear of it for a while. Was the damnedest thing. Critters should start attacking each other. And I bet you ain't complaining. No, sir, not one damn bit. I'll let you know the rendezvous point as soon as we know ourselves. Jim glanced up at the red sky. He could see that the battle was still raging above the planet. Here and there were explosions, appearing as small puffs from the distance. He could even see the tiny shapes of Mutalisk closer to the surface. Kerrigan's body suddenly spasmed, and she began to cough. Jim swore. He should have thought of this. They still didn't know what exactly had happened to Kerrigan. It could be that the transition back to human had weakened her more than they thought. "Medic!" he called as he placed Kerrigan on the ground, kneeling beside her. Lily Preston hurried up to him, striding swiftly in her medic's hardskin, while pulling out a respiratory unit from her pack. She too knelt beside Kerrigan, fastening the unit over the gaping woman's mouth and nose. A thin blanket, featherlight, but made of a material known as insulweave, that would ensure that the patient's body heat stayed at a steady 37 degrees Celsius, was gently wrapped around Kerrigan. She whimpered softly as her limbs were lifted and tucked in like a doll's, but the coughing and spasming stopped. Preston peered at Jim. "We don't know what she is anymore, Jim," she said. "I'm training her like a human, but—" "She is human, damn it!" Jim snapped, insisting on it, even though he himself was gripped with a cold fear that Kerrigan really wasn't. "She has trouble breathing the air just like we do. Her body temperature—" The ground on which the two knelt suddenly pitched like a wild animal, and there was a huge reverberating. I can't really say this word. Reverberating sound that seemed to go on forever. Several other raiders were knocked clean off their feet. Jim held Sarah close, trying to keep her stable. Out of the corner of his eye, he glimpsed a huge red glow, and he whirled to see what had happened. A gigantic chunk of what had once been a battlecruiser was now nothing more than blazing wreckage, burning suddenly in the crater it had made. Things out of nightmares were swarming all over it. They were Zerglings, the smallest package in which Zerg hell came. Hydralisks were a maglev train wreck, combination of insects with scythe-like arms, snake bodies, teeth that never ended, and neosteel penetrating spines that fired from their backs. Mutalisks were monsters that brought the ability to fly in the atmosphere and in deep space, acidic blood and parasitic glaive worms into the mix. What the Zerglings lacked in size and unique attacks compared to their brothers, they made up for in numbers. Seemingly composed entirely of teeth and claws and carapaces, the Zerglings threw themselves on the wreckage, attracted like insects to the brightness and the heat, and screamed horribly as their bodies were burned to a crisp. Jim glanced skyward and shouted, "Brace for impact!" as the rest of the battlecruiser, in fiery chunks as small as a helmet and as large as a house,